Strategic Foundations of Sustainable Human Resource Management. The strategic foundations of sustainable human resource management, HRM, lie in integrating long-term organizational goals with the well-being and development of human capital. Unlike traditional HRM, which often emphasizes short-term efficiency, sustainable HRM positions employees as key stakeholders who generate enduring value for the organization. By aligning organizational strategy with principles such as ethical management, equity, continuous learning, and organizational continuity, sustainable HRM not only supports competitive advantage but also fosters a resilient and responsible organizational culture. This approach underscores the importance of strategic foresight, cultural alignment, and stakeholder engagement as the pillars of effective and lasting human resource practices. Learning outcomes. By the end of this session, students will be able to connect sustainable HR practices with core HR functions, adapt HRM principles to organizational practices, develop a long-term human resource management perspective. Although the concept of sustainability initially emerged around environmental concerns, it has over time evolved into a holistic management approach encompassing economic and social dimensions as well. The fundamental premise of the concept is the principle of meeting present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This approach emphasizes that it is not sufficient for organizations to focus solely on short-term performance indicators, rather, they bear a responsibility for creating long-term value. Accordingly, sustainability is not a concept limited to environmental protection policies alone, but a framework that fundamentally shapes management philosophy. In the sustainability literature, the most widely accepted approach is to address sustainability through three core dimensions. This structure is also referred to as the triple bottom line. A. Economic sustainability. Economic sustainability refers to organizations' ability to maintain the financial and structural capacity necessary to sustain their operations in the long term. This dimension goes beyond mere profit generation and includes efficient use of resources, risk management, and stable growth. B. Social sustainability. Social sustainability concerns organizations' fulfillment of their responsibilities toward employees, stakeholders, and society. Justice, equity, respect for human dignity, and healthy and safe working conditions constitute the core elements of this dimension. C. Environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability refers to the protection of natural resources, the reduction of environmental impacts, and the preservation of ecosystem balance. Organizations are obliged to consider the environmental consequences of their activities and to develop strategies to minimize these impacts. Over time, the concept of sustainability has revealed that organizations should be concerned not only with what they produce, but also with how they are managed. This transformation constitutes the foundation of a sustainable management approach. A sustainable management approach emphasizes long-term outcomes rather than short-term objectives, multidimensional performance rather than solely financial outputs, a broad stakeholder ecosystem rather than narrow stakeholder groups. Within this perspective, success is measured not only by current performance, but also by an organization's capacity to survive and create value in the future. One of the most significant outcomes of this transformation is the reconfiguration of the role of human resource management. HRM has evolved beyond a support function to become a carrier of the sustainability strategy. Traditional management approaches have often viewed human resources as a cost factor and established systems focused on efficiency, control, and short-term outputs. However, the sustainability perspective has clearly revealed the limitations of this approach. A sustainable management approach represents a paradigm shift that places people at the center, supports learning and development, is grounded in ethical principles, encourages long-term thinking. One of the most evident reflections of this transformation is the redefinition of the role of human resource management. HRM is no longer merely a supportive function, but a key driver of the sustainability strategy. A sustainable management approach prioritizes long-term outcomes over short-term objectives, multidimensional performance over purely financial outputs, and a broad stakeholder ecosystem over narrow stakeholder groups. In order for organizations to fulfill their missions and achieve their visions, the following processes are defined as human resource management activities: conducting HR analysis to determine the quantity of workforce required, identifying, through HR planning, the characteristics the workforce should possess, as well as when and where employees will be deployed, based on the results of the analysis, recruiting the workforce when needed, implementing compensation and benefits practices for hired employees, regularly measuring and managing employee performance, providing training and development in line with organizational needs. Carrying out career management based on employees' potential future positions, ensuring occupational health and safety for employees, managing industrial relations with legally mandated institutions and organizations, e.g., Social Security institutions, trade unions, implementing termination procedures for employees when deemed necessary. Human Resource Management, HRM, is a field of management that has evolved in parallel with changes in organizations' perspectives on the human element. This evolution is not merely a matter of changes in terminology. Rather, it reflects a redefinition of the position, value, and role of individuals within organizations. The development of HRM has generally progressed in parallel with the transition from industrial production to the knowledge society. The position of human resources among the factors of production has varied depending on historical conditions and the prevailing management philosophy of each period. Personnel management era. During this period, individuals were regarded as replaceable elements of the production process. The main characteristics of the personnel management approach included: employees were primarily viewed as a cost item. The management approach was short-term and control-oriented. Wages, working hours, and disciplinary procedures were emphasized. Employee development and participation were limited. Human resource management. Over time, technological advancements, increasing competition, and the growth of the service sector made the importance of the human element more visible. Under this new perspective, individuals were no longer seen merely as labor, but as resources possessing knowledge and skills, capable of development and worthy of investment. Recruitment processes became more systematic. Training and development activities gained importance. Performance appraisal and career planning practices became more widespread. Strategic human resource management. In this approach, HRM became a function aligned with organizational strategies, serving long-term objectives, and integrated into top management decision-making processes. Human capital is viewed as a key source of competitive advantage. Competency management and talent development come to the forefront. Performance management is linked to strategic objectives. HRM plays an active role in organizational decision-making. At the strategic level, HRM focuses on long-term alignment between organizational strategy and human capital. Decisions made at this level directly influence the organization's future competitiveness. Human resource strategy. HR strategy defines how human capital will support business objectives. It identifies critical competencies and determines where to invest in talent. Strategic human resource planning. This process ensures that the organization has the right number of employees, with the right skills, at the right time and place. HR control and reporting. HR activities are monitored through performance indicators, and results are reported to top management to support strategic decision-making. Core HR processes represent the operational and developmental heart of HRM. These activities directly affect employee performance and organizational effectiveness. Recruitment and training. Qualified employees are attracted, selected, and continuously developed to meet organizational needs. Competitive management, HR development. Employee capabilities are strengthened to create and sustain competitive advantage. Competitive management, success planning. Individual and organizational success is planned and managed through goal alignment. Management development. Current and future managers are prepared through leadership and skill development programs. Performance management and compensation. Employee performance is systematically evaluated and linked to fair and motivating reward systems. Culture and change management. Organizational culture is shaped to support strategic transformation and adaptability. Union relations and committees. Employee representation and labor relations are managed within legal and institutional frameworks. Support processes provide the infrastructure that enables HRM to operate efficiently and consistently. Communication between HR functions, coordination and information sharing ensure coherence across HR activities. HR administration. The structure, roles, and responsibilities of the HR department are organized and managed. HR information systems development and maintenance. Digital HR systems support data-driven decision-making and operational efficiency. Training and event management. Learning initiatives and organizational events strengthen employee engagement and continuous development. Sustainable human resource management can be defined, in the broadest sense, as a management approach that aims to protect, develop, and reproduce an organization's human resources over the long term. Sustainable human resource management differs from traditional and strategic HRM approaches in several critical aspects. Traditional HRM is performance and output oriented. SHRM is capacity and continuity oriented. Traditional HRM often instrumentalizes human beings. SHRM places human beings at the center. Traditional HRM seeks to optimize the present. SHRM establishes a balance between the present and the future. Traditional HRM focuses on individual performance. SHRM considers organizational and human balance. Sustainable human resource management is shaped by a set of fundamental principles. These principles define the direction and boundaries of SHRM practices. 1. Principle of long-term thinking. SHRM considers not only the short-term effects of human resource-related decisions, but also their long-term consequences. Practices such as excessive workload, precarious employment, or continuous performance pressure are evaluated in terms of the risks they may create in the future. 2. Respect for human dignity and ethical principle. SHRM views employees not merely as economic entities, but as individuals with inherent rights. Justice, equality, transparency, and opposition to discrimination constitute the core elements of this principle. 3. Protection of employee well-being. Psychological and social well-being, as well as physical health, are indispensable components of sustainable human resources. SHRM promotes practices that prevent burnout and support work-life balance. 4. Continuity of development and learning. Sustainable HRM does not limit itself to employees' existing competencies. It is based on the principle of lifelong learning. Training, development, and career opportunities enable the renewal of human resources. 5. Participation and empowerment. Employee participation in decision-making processes not only enhances motivation, but also strengthens organizational sustainability. SHRM adopts an inclusive management approach in which employees' voices are heard. 6. Principle of balance and holism. SHRM aims to establish a balance between organizational objectives and employee needs. A holistic approach is adopted between productivity and well-being, competition and ethics, flexibility and security. In traditional approaches, HRM has been viewed as a function that comes into play after the organizational strategy is formulated and is responsible for providing human resources in line with predetermined objectives. Within this understanding, HRM is characterized as a structure that adapts to the strategy, participates in decision-making processes at a limited level, assumes an implementer role. The sustainability approach aims not only for organizational strategy to provide competitive advantage but also to secure organizational continuity in the long term. This objective cannot be achieved without the protection and development of human resources. At this point, sustainable HRM shapes the human dimension of strategy, considers long-term human capacity, provides a framework aligned with ethical and social responsibility principles. Within this approach, HRM is not a passive element that merely adapts to strategy. Rather, it is an active actor that co-constructs the strategy. Sustainable human resource management contributes to organizational strategy at multiple levels. A. Long-term competitive advantage. Sustainable HRM supports the attraction and retention of talented employees within the organization. This creates a competitive advantage that is difficult for competitors to imitate. B. Reduction of strategic risks. Human-related risks such as excessive workload, high turnover rates, and talent loss constitute some of the most significant obstacles to strategic success. Sustainable HRM aims to identify and mitigate these risks at an early stage. C. Organizational resilience and flexibility. A workforce that can adapt to changing environmental conditions, learn continuously, and renew itself forms the foundation of strategic flexibility. Sustainable HRM contributes to the sustainable development of this capacity. D. Corporate reputation and trust. Organizations that adopt responsible and fair practices toward their employees gain trust not only among employees but also among customers, investors, and society at large. This trust is a key component of strategic success. Within the sustainable HRM perspective, human resource managers participate in strategic planning processes, evaluate the human impact of strategic decisions, develop long-term human resource scenarios. This role transforms HRM from an operational support function into a strategic partner. Fundamental principles in managing the strategy sustainable HRM relationship. For a sustainable strategy HRM relationship, the following principles are essential. Human resource decisions should be addressed together with strategic objectives. Short-term gains should not be pursued at the expense of long-term human sustainability. Strategy should not strain employee capacity but rather foster its development. HRM should be represented in strategic decision-making processes. This framework illustrates how sustainable human resource management, (HRM), operates within broader socio-economic and organizational contexts. It emphasizes the alignment between organizational strategy and HRM strategy, showing how HR policies and practices transform human capital into sustainable organizational, social, and individual outcomes. The model highlights the inherent tensions between efficiency, normative values, and long-term substance in sustainability interpretations. By linking HRM practices to organizational competitiveness, social legitimacy, and employee well-being, the framework demonstrates that sustainable performance depends not only on short-term productivity but also on the long-term viability of human capital and its sources. The model then presents 3 levels of effects. At the organizational level, sustainable HRM contributes to ethical responsibility, sustained competitive advantage, innovation, productivity, and long-term workforce viability. At the social level, it enhances social legitimacy, accountability, trust, and the sustainability of human capital sources. At the individual level, it supports employee well-being, motivation, performance, employability, and work-life balance. Overall, the framework shows that sustainable HRM creates value not only for organizations, but also for individuals and society, ensuring the long-term continuity of human capital. The transition from traditional HRM to sustainable HRM can be examined through 6 interrelated stages. Stage 1. Diagnosis of the existing HRM structure. At this stage, the following actions should be taken. Analyzing the current state of HRM functions, planning, recruitment, performance, training, etc. Evaluating the level of alignment between HRM and organizational strategy, examining employee satisfaction, commitment, and turnover rates, identifying existing HRM indicators, KPIs. The objective is to clearly identify what works and what is not sustainable. Stage 2. Defining the vision and principles of sustainable HRM. Following the diagnosis, a new direction and meaning for HRM must be defined. At this stage, the vision of sustainable HRM is articulated in written form, a human-centered, long-term, and ethics-based HRM approach is defined, the strategic role of HRM within the organization is repositioned. This vision should emphasize that HRM is not merely a support function but a strategic actor that creates value. Stage 3. Redesigning HRM structure and roles. The sustainable HRM model may be incompatible with the existing departmental structure, therefore, structural transformation is required. At this stage, HRM roles are differentiated into operational and strategic roles. The strategic HRM and HR business partner approach is adopted. Areas such as analytics, learning and development, and talent management are strengthened. The objective is to transform HRM into a unit that not only implements but also designs and guides organizational practices. Stage 4. Reconstructing HRM functions from a sustainability perspective. This stage represents the most visible part of the transformation. Key practices to be implemented include conducting human resource planning on a long-term and data-driven basis, transforming training and development activities into a continuous learning model, reshaping performance management to focus on development and feedback, structuring career and talent management based on continuity, redesigning compensation, reward, and benefits systems based on fairness and transparency. These steps ensure the integration of sustainability into HRM functions. Stage 5. Cultural transformation and ensuring employee participation. Sustainable HRM is not merely a system issue but a cultural one. Therefore, employee participation mechanisms are strengthened, feedback and representation channels are institutionalized, principles of ethics, fairness, and inclusiveness are reflected in daily practices. Employees should be positioned not as objects of transformation but as its active subjects. Stage 6. Measurement, reporting, and continuous improvement. To ensure the permanence of the transformation, monitoring and improvement mechanisms must be established. At this stage, sustainable HRM indicators are defined, regular measurement and reporting are conducted, practices are continuously updated based on the data obtained. This approach transforms sustainable HRM into a dynamic rather than a static system. Stage 5. Cultural transformation and ensuring employee participation. Sustainable HRM is not merely a system issue but a cultural one. Therefore, Employee participation mechanisms are strengthened, feedback and representation channels are institutionalized, principles of ethics, fairness, and inclusiveness are reflected in daily practices. Employees should be positioned not as objects of transformation but as its active subjects. Stage 6. Measurement, reporting, and continuous improvement. To ensure the permanence of the transformation, monitoring and improvement mechanisms must be established. At this stage, sustainable HRM indicators are defined, regular measurement and reporting are conducted, practices are continuously updated based on the data obtained. This approach transforms sustainable HRM into a dynamic rather than a static system. The most common challenges encountered in the transition from traditional HRM to sustainable HRM include limited support from top management, short-term performance pressure, cultural resistance, insufficient data and analytical capacity. These challenges can be overcome through a planned and phased transition. Conditions for successful transformation. For a sustainable HRM transformation to be successful, the following factors are critical: clear and continuous support from top management, positioning HRM as a strategic partner, transparent communication and employee participation, measurable goals and performance indicators. Sustainability in management encompasses not only environmental concerns but also economic, social, and ethical dimensions, requiring a holistic approach with human capital at its core. Human resource management, HRM, has evolved from personnel administration to strategic HRM, and further toward sustainable HRM, reflecting its shift from an administrative function to a strategic organizational partner. Sustainable HRM treats employees as long-term value-generating stakeholders rather than short-term productivity units. Its principles include long-term orientation, respect for human dignity, fairness and equity, continuous learning, ethical management, and organizational continuity. Alignment between organizational strategy and sustainable HRM is essential for creating competitive advantage. Without it, sustainability initiatives remain largely symbolic. The transition to sustainable HRM involves planned steps such as situational analysis, vision setting, structural redesign, functional transformation, cultural change, and continuous improvement. Beyond technical adjustments, it requires shifts in organizational culture, values, and management mindset, with employee engagement, transparency, and trust being critical success factors.